Hello and welcome to Comedy in a Nutshell, the podcast in which we examine comedy with the structure of a conversation, the seriousness of a documentary, and the sidetracks, tangents, distractions, and... I forgot what I was talking about. I'm the comedy nerd who's seen more than 2,000 different comedians perform live comedy, and you can find out more about my journey in comedy fandom on my website, thecomedynerd.com. Please also take a moment to like, subscribe, rate, review, and share the podcast. Thank you. My guest this episode is a Los Angeles-based comedian and one-man show creator whose work blends clown, improv, physical theatre, and a gleeful sense of chaos. His award-winning solo show, The Best Man Show, a drunken wedding speech that spirals spectacularly out of control, was one of the best-reviewed shows at the 2025 Edinburgh Fringe and premiered as a special on the streaming service Dropout in 2026. With huge energy, inventive audience interaction, and comedy that's both absurd and surprisingly heartfelt. It's comedian Mark Vigilant. So let's start, as I always like to do at the very beginning, growing up. How big was comedy an influence on you back then?
I grew up my dad was a comedy nerd, and I don't think I really appreciated that until I, was in college and I met comedy nerds at the theater that I did improv at. And I was like, oh, I know I have a big depth of knowledge here. I'm the youngest of five. And it was like a contest always to see who could quote the most things and make each other laugh at dinner and stuff.
Yeah.
So I would say like my biggest influence, like the thing I was obsessed with as a child was The Simpsons. But my dad kind of raised us on the things that he found really funny, which was like a lot of old American radio programs.
Yeah.
Like Stan Freberg and Bob and Ray, and then old stand-ups like Bill Cosby. And Mel Brooks. We love Mel Brooks movies. I was just thinking actually in preparation for this, I was thinking about one of my biggest early influences. I watched a lot of old American television, like I Love Lucy. Have you ever watched I Love Lucy?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lucille Ball just like made my brother and I laugh so hard growing up. And there's this other comedian who I think a lot of people don't really know. His name's Ernie Kovacs.
Yes.
Are you familiar?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, like the story with him is that he was like making absurdist sketch comedy on television in the 50s, which is not common in the United States. Like I feel like nobody knows about that. And the CBS, the network that aired it, like tried to throw away all of the tapes after he died.
Oh, wow.
And his wife rescued a handful of them. And so my dad was able to show my brother and I growing up a lot of old Ernie Kovacs stuff. And like this was, whereas like Sid Caesar, who would be the other famous sketch comedian at the time, who was much more well known, whose work I do also really like, he was doing what would be more commonly described as this like sketch comedy.
Right.
Like Ernie Kovacs's bits were like, there's a man in a gorilla costume hitting another person on the head with a frying pan, and it's really funny, and you can't really explain why. Which is like what clowning is.
Yes.
He was like a modern clown, just like Lucille Ball. And so that's the kind of stuff I was getting really into when I was a kid.
Yeah. So were those the influences that made you want to do comedy for yourself? Because you went down the, what do you call it over there? A software engineering route, is that correct?
Yeah.
Electrical engineering?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, software engineering.
So how did those two paths cross, or where did they diverge?
So what you have the advantage of being able to see into my office. Right here, this is a poster for my the first solo show in what I call my Fringe era. This is the first show I took to Edinburgh. And it's, those solo shows that are like, biographical to a large extent.
Yeah.
I feel like every person who makes a solo show, they have to get that one out. The one that's like, here's my story. That was that one for me.
Yeah.
and it's all about people pleasing. It's called Mark Pleases You.
Yes.
And so to answer your question, I always wanted to be a comedian. I always wanted to be a performer because I was a obese child. My sense of humor was my entire personality, was my defense mechanism. It's how I stood out amongst my siblings who were funnier and older than me. And I just always wanted to be a performer since I was very, very little.
Yeah.
And my parents wanted me to go to engineering school, so I did. And I hated it. I hated it. But I spent a lot of my time in college with my college improv group.
Yep.
Which was the Whistling Shrimp.
Of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's
makes sense.
It's inspired by a Nikita Khrushchev quote, I think.
Naturally, yeah.
Yeah, obviously. It's effectively the quote is effectively like capitalism will work when a shrimp learns how to whistle.
Yeah, okay.
And he's not wrong.
So you went into improv then with the Whistling Shrimp.
Yeah.
But you also, in later works now, you've got clown, there's sketch, there's a bit of stand-up. You have this big complex mix of comedic styles. Yeah. Are you trying to do everything all at once? Or is there so much influence in there that you have to kind of integrate these things together?
Yeah, exactly.
Do they work well all the time, or do you find them in conflict sometimes?
I find categories so challenging because I'm at this beautiful part in my career where I don't really think about what the category is. Like the only time that I really like struggle to classify myself is when somebody is like, "You're a clown, right?" And I'm like, yes, but like to Dr. Brown, he would tell me I'm not a clown. Like a real clown would be like, this guy's not a clown. But like to your average fringe goer, yeah, there's clown in there.
Yeah.
I'm in this beautiful place where like I trained doing improv, then I became a sketch comedian, and then I did the thing that a lot of people try. I did like the John Oliver style thing, where you're like trying to make funny essay PowerPoint presentations for a long time.
Yeah.
And then I started learning how to act and make pieces of theater that just like used everything that I had while I was training to be a clown. So
yeah.
My shows are like sketchy character theater pieces that are semi-improvised and have moments of real connected clowning in them.
Yeah.
And I like they don't ever really conflict. I guess they conflict in the sense that like in Out There, the show that I'm bringing to Fringe this year, there are moments of more serious dramatic tension.
Yes.
And I guess this is the challenge with any show that is predominantly funny is like some people don't stop laughing, and then I have to try to kind of be like, this is a serious moment. It doesn't matter. If you're laughing, it's fine.
Well, we'll come back to some shows in a little bit, but to go back to some of the earlier days.
Yeah, keep me on track. Thank you, Mark.
So starting out then, we've talked about a little bit about your influences. What about discovering comedy as a performer for yourself?
Oh, yeah.
What was your earliest gig, your earliest outing onto the stage?
Oh, my gosh. Well, so I grew up in this really unique period of time where video cameras were affordable and editing software was pretty easy to use, but it was before adults in my world understood how easy it was. Right. And like YouTube came out in 2006 and I was in high school in 2004 through 2007. Mm-hmm. And so all throughout high school, I was making videos, and my teachers all thought I was just like the greatest. They were like, "Wow, that's so crazy!" Like so, and like obviously everybody makes videos all the time now, and so the gig is up. Like no one can look at my creative genius anymore. But at the time, it was just like, wow, Mark has this incredible creative streak. So that's like. I started by making videos with my friends and for all these projects. And what really like cracked me wide open was my brother took a class at this theater in New York called the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater,
Yeah.
which I'm sure you've heard of as a comedy nerd man. It was this black box underneath a grocery store where it was like grimy and dangerous. And I the first show I ever went there just like blew my mind. I was 15 years old, and there were all these famous people or people who were about to be famous just on stage doing what I did with my buddies, with a video camera in the basement, but like way better for like 200 people crammed in. I was sitting on the floor. It was amazing. It was just like this amazing experience. So then when I went to college, I was like, I'm going to be an improv guy. And, I would say my first improv shows in college were really affirming to me. Like I did really well. I had a great stage presence, and like to say you are a great improv comedian, at a engineering school, 6 hours north of New York City is not really, you know what I mean? I'm like, woo, I did it. But like the first gig, the first gig that I like that is memorable in a important life-defining way was the first time I tried to do stand-up in college. I bombed so hard. Like I bombed perhaps the hardest I've ever bombed in my entire life. And like it was because I was a freshman or first year. So I was a first year university student.
Yeah.
And I was so full of myself. I thought I was the funniest person in the world. I had taken a class at UCB, so I thought, like I'm hot shit. I know so much about this. And there was this stand-up comedy contest, and I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna walk in. Who else here does stand? This is crazy. Had I ever done stand-up, Mark? No. No, I had not. But I had listened to a lot of Mitch Hedberg and Jim Gaffigan and Steve Martin, and of course, aforementioned Bill Cosby.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm going to get in there. I'm going to do some funny storytelling. And in my head, it was going to be in, like the community center, and there would be 5 people in the audience because, it's, what a lot of those kinds of events are like.
Sure. Yeah.
But no, this was held in a bar. This was held in a bar. And it was like a restaurant bar, so it was absolutely full, packed. All of the people who I had just met, like on my floor in my dormitory, they all came to support me. And within the first minute of me getting on stage, someone started heckling me, and I started freezing up. Someone started trying to clap me off the stage. People were booing. It was, and I had to like, and like the whole bit was like a story. It was like this thing that I was supposed to try to, I was trying to do like comedic storytelling.
Right.
And I hadn't planned anything. It was just going to be pure charisma and confidence. And I had zero confidence and zero charisma. I like froze. And I walked off stage, and I wanted to crawl into a hole and die. And because then I had to walk a mile back to my dormitory with all of the people I knew in college, all of them. And the reason that stuck with me so much is because like the next day I was still alive, and I was like, it's actually not that bad.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, I felt more emboldened to take risks because I was like, I know where the bottom is, and it's really bad, but it's not so bad.
Yeah.
And that also influenced me because the next time that I did stand up, I was so afraid of that kind of thing happening again. I came up with a character, and it killed. And I did so well. And that's when I started to realize like, oh, this is where I am in my zone of comfort, where I have this outrageous character that I can rely on. And if people don't like him, it's okay, because that's not me,
Yeah.
And what I found, I mean, this is just like the most basic, obvious thing, but as a performer, sometimes you discover the most basic, obvious things on their feet.
Yes.
It's easier for me to be honest when I'm playing a ridiculous character.
Yeah. Well, that's something that I talk about a lot is how much the persona of the person on stage reflects the persona of you yourself, how honest you are being in that
Oh
sense.
yeah.
And I talk about characters as being like a protection. It gives you that one step of distance. But given that you are doing characters, like if you look at your recent shows like out there, you've mentioned Best Man Show, given that you are basically playing a character, you seem to pick out characters who are lonely or this need for attention, and you could be anybody. What attracts you to these kinds of characters?
Yeah, wow. So somebody has recently approached me and said that I'm really excellent at playing toxic men. And I was just like, well, somebody has to. Um, but then another friend of mine, I have another, so yeah, the Best Man Show, the character I'm playing is this like over the top, cocky asshole who's actually deeply lonely.
Mm,
And out there, I'm playing this like repressed, burnt out engineer
yeah.
who kind of blames everyone for his problems. And then I've been the another character I've been playing around with a lot is I dress up as the devil.
Yeah. Yeah.
And um and a friend of mine, after seeing my devil show, said, "Oh, you do one character really well," and I thought that was interesting. What attracts me to these characters is like my process. I remember hearing a podcast interview with Fred Willard
Hmm.
about at this point like 15 years ago. It
Oh.
was probably Mark Maron's podcast, another famous Mark on a podcast.
Yeah.
Um, and Fred said something to the effect of comedy comes from pain. And I remember hearing that and being 22 or 23 years old and thinking like, what are you talking about? Like,
Mm.
I couldn't relate to that because I didn't think of myself as a person who had to really live with a lot of pain, which wasn't true. I was just like really deeply in denial about certain painful aspects of my life or like hadn't really approached them yet because you're young, you don't understand.
Mm.
And in more recent years, I've realized like the best path towards the most fulfilling creative expression is by channeling what's really hurting and by channeling in a safe way,
Mm.
channeling what's hurting and channeling what's scary.
Yeah.
And these characters, they come up for me because um they've been able to be my way into really hard topics.
Right.
So for instance, with the Best Man Show, I'm
Hmm.
really grappling with what it means to love and because at the time, and I know I'm jumping all over the place here, Mark,
It's
and
fine.
you're going to have to put me back on track again. But in that show, I was going through a really tumultuous experience in my personal life. I was experimenting with polyamory. I was married. The marriage wasn't thriving. I was in love with somebody else, and I was feeling very distant from my family. My family lives on the other side of the country. I live in LA.
Yeah.
Everybody else lives on the East Coast. And I was having all these thoughts about like what do I owe my partner? What do I owe my parents? What do I owe my brother? How does love show up in all these different ways? And this character, in a way, it was like taking the character who understood love the least
Mm.
and dropping him into a context, a wedding, where love is abound
Mm.
and watching this explosion or this implosion happen.
Yeah.
And I think when I play a character who is obviously flawed, it's easier for me to play because uh because we all know that guy and we can all kind of get behind laughing at that guy.
Mm.
Um yeah. And I know obviously there are parts of me that show up in these characters too. you know? And I work really hard to be a good person, but the deep inside you, the ugly parts, they come out, and it's fun to play with them and to like exercise them.
Yeah. I mean, the Best Man speech was hugely well received at the Edinburgh Festival, which we talked briefly about.
Yeah.
Do you, like your characters, seek out that kind of affirmation? Do you give credit to your credits in that sense? Does the reviews matter? Does star ratings matter? Do awards matter? How competitive are you? How much do you seek that affirmation?
Oh my God. I mean, I mean, do I want a good review is what you're saying?
We all want
Yeah.
a good review, but how important are they?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's the biggest trap in the world. It's compare and despair. Like I would say that Edinburgh Fringe is like one of the most incredible places in the world. It's just my experience at that festival has fundamentally changed my life.
Hmm.
And like, right now, as we record this, we're entering the final week of the Hollywood Fringe Festival.
Hmm.
There are a number of festivals that I do regularly now. And yeah, I mean, there is a competitive spirit inside me. And now that I'm on my fourth season, or my fourth year of seasons,
Hmm. Yeah.
I have a little bit more self-assurance and self-confidence. I've built an audience.
Hmm.
I know because the Best Man show was so well regarded and I got to make it a special on Dropout, and I've performed the Best Man show for an audience of 120 people densely packed in there who, hollered and screamed at every joke and everything. That was an experience that reminded me like, this is good. You know what good is. You're capable of getting that. And it's okay if you have a show where 10 people show up.
Yeah.
It's okay. You can relax a little bit.
Mm.
I certainly I love to get a 5-star review.
Hmm.
I try so hard not to overthink about it. I try so hard not to, pace back and forth and be like, I'm doing this for the reviews. I'm doing this to sell out. I think that the concept of selling out is cutting at the very heart of what it means to be an artist. Like the one of the biggest challenges of Edinburgh is trying to keep your head up, while everyone is just like, oh, this person sold out. This person sold out. Oh, I sold out. And that's just not what it's about, Like it's a metric that indicates that your theater is the venue that you selected is like small
Yeah.
comparatively. There's a venue in the Hollywood Fringe that has 25 seats, and people will be like, "Well, I sold out," and I'm like, "Yeah, well, my theater has 96 seats, and call me back." You know?
The Edinburgh Fringe is famous for every nook and cranny becomes a venue.
Right.
There was a time when there was a show in a car. There was a show in a
hell yeah.
phone booth that was, you were literally face to face, one person at a time. So you could sell out every night and have one person in your
Sold out run, Edinburgh 2026.
Yeah.
One person at a time. Yeah, no, totally, dude. I mean, this year is the first year that I have invested in publicity. I've run my own PR every year before this. And I've just asked the incredible Lily from Tin Pony to help me, because it's just a thing I don't have to think about anymore. I have to say that like my approach to Fringe, is it's like warrior training. And I get up and I spend an hour emailing people my press release, and then I spend 2 or 3 hours flyering, and then I go see a show, and then I go do my show, and then I have some drinks, and then I go to sleep, and I try to do it all again, and
Yeah.
the like having to advocate for myself with press releases and nagging people, that's just it's a thing I don't like to do. And yeah, it's all subjective too.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You talked a little bit about putting together your audience, but unlike some acts shows, your audience are oftentimes part of the show. So,
Yes.
yeah, a lot of comedians can do crowd work, but you can build a show around the audience's participation. So, where's the line
Yeah.
between the improv and the architecture? How much of the chaos is actually engineered, if you like, and how much is on the spot?
No, I love this question. Well, and I also just I want to make, I think about audience interaction a lot.
Mm,
I was deeply inspired, by clowns in Edinburgh.
mm,
And I've seen a lot of clown shows that do audience participation brilliantly. And I've seen
yeah,
a lot of clown shows that do it really poorly.
yeah,
And I've been to stand-up shows where they do crowd work and it's very mean. And it's kind of surprising to me that now I have this reputation as being this. I mean, it's not surprising, obviously, but it's surprising in the course of my life that I make these shows where everyone in the audience is like, at any moment, I might just get on stage and sing a song.
yeah,
But because I've been to shows where like the idea of being pulled on stage is a total nightmare. And as a result, my director, Joanna, and we take it very, very seriously. It's always got to be consensual and it's always got to be clear and it's always got to be, I'm the butt of the joke, not you.
mm,
And out there, the only audience participation I have is extremely playful. Like out there is like the best man show. I'm going up to people and I'm kind of putting a microphone in their face, and a lot of the times, well, every time I've learned how to tell you exactly what I want from you. You know, like I put the
yeah,
microphone in your face and I say, "Mama, stop crying."
yeah,
There's only really one way you react to that, and if you don't get it, I just repeat the instruction.
yeah,
Um, and without there, it feels like we're in a sandbox and I'm playing with my friends and we're like, okay, you're a moose now, I'm gonna chase you around, we're gonna play hide and seek. um where does the line what's so fascinating is that like I've experienced this as an audience member. When you go to a show that has audience participation and it's done well, you feel like you're watching something magical unfold
mm,
because it's true. Like, how could it possibly be that this performer has invited this stranger onto the stage and they're doing something and it's working? How is this possible? And as an audience member who doesn't know what's coming, it kind of feels like this'll never happen again. It'll
mm,
never be like this. We got to see the only time this has ever happened.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and pretty much every time somebody leaves one of my shows, they go, well, it's never going to be like that again.
yeah.
You're never going to get a moose like that. No one's going to be like that person. And the truth is there is, there is going to be another moose like that. My show is extremely written, which is why I say I'm not a clown. My show
Right.
has chunks of dialogue and then bulleted list beats that are like kind of like my more clowny moments where I'm like, these are the beats that I hit, and I write them down.
Mm.
First of all, for the tech person, but second of all, so that if I take a few months off, I can come back and be like, oh, right. Um, and this is not to say, listen, people surprise me.
Mm.
I've alluded to this a few times, but in out there, uh, I am a survivalist in the woods,
Hmm.
and there's a moment where I go hunting for a moose, and an audience member plays a moose, and I kind of track it through the theater. And where that person wants to go is up to them.
Yeah.
And sometimes there was a show I did at the Orlando Fringe Festival where I picked somebody to be the moose, and sitting right behind him was a physical theater artist
Right.
who became the moose's antlers and the back. And so then the two of them moved around the space as though they were one, and it was really cool, and that's never happened before.
Mm.
Usually it's just one person. Yeah. So it is very structured, is my point.
Yeah.
But there's magic.
Yeah. There's danger as well, though, relinquishing
Yes.
choice to the audience. I mean, you never give power to people who want power, So the
Right.
people who want to get involved are exactly the sort of people you don't want them to get involved, is an argument. So, I mean,
Sure.
do you think audiences, or your audience particularly, from your experience, are now more open to that immersive communal style of comedy and moving away from the person with a mic, the monologuist? Is it now going more about the inclusivity of everyone participating in some small manner?
I think it's case by case, you know what I
Mm,
mean? And I think it really has to do with safety and it has to do with what your vibe is.
yeah.
Like I said, I only want consensual clowning. Maybe that should be my t-shirt. I only want I want to play with people who want to play, and what's beautiful about my shows is the nice thing about having performed for as much as I have and having had the success that I've had is that I have had word of mouth help me get people who the right people are coming to the show.
Mhm.
Um, and that doesn't mean it's people who want to jump on stage and bounce around the whole time. It means that they're people who are willing to go there with me if they feel safe.
Yeah.
For the vast majority of the show, you're just sitting in your chair.
Mm.
But I set the ground rules up very, very simply, and I think that for anybody who's listening who wants to experiment with audience participation, like what's important, what's really important from the very beginning of a show for a person who's doing this kind of thing is to demonstrate that I'm in control.
Mm.
I demonstrate that I'm in control, make it very clear that I know how to handle things when they go off the rails.
Yeah.
Like with the Best Man show, so at Edinburgh last year, my time slot was 10:20 p.m. in the crate, which is
Yeah.
one of those shipping containers. And on a Friday or Saturday night, I mean that is 75 drunk people.
Yeah.
and, and if I don't you're walking a tightrope because you have to come out, you have to kick the door down and be like, "Hey, you're listening to me now. And don't worry, I'm funny. And also, I'm going to ask you to do some shit. And don't worry, no matter what you do, it's going to be okay." And it's a tightrope because if somebody, when you pass the microphone to somebody and they say something kind of messed up, or they don't play along by the rules that I'm setting up where I'm like, "What did you think of the wedding?" And they say, "I wasn't at a wedding." And be like, "We were all just at a wedding, sir." You know, you have to you have to be prepared to divert course. And if you yell at an audience member because they didn't give you what you wanted,
hmm
you ruin the vibe is destroyed. Because it's like if you try to discipline somebody, because like the danger I kept running into with the Best Man show is people would start shouting out of turn.
Yeah.
They're like, "Oh, it's a show where I can just like say things the whole time." And so I had to learn you have to jump on that the first time that happens. You have to tell someone very carefully, "Hey, I only want you to talk if I'm giving you the microphone."
Yeah.
And depending on how I say that, if I say it just a little too mean, then everyone puts their tails between their legs, and I have to earn the trust back.
hmm
But if I don't snuff it out instantly, people will talk through the whole show, and it sucks.
Yeah.
So it is just like this. It's this dance that you have to do, and I think I feel very proud of where I've come with this skill set. People do come up to me and they say like, I always feel like I feel like I'm in good hands,
Yeah.
and like in order to have as much audience participation as I have in my show, I have to feel so comfortable with improvisation, so comfortable with how can I figure this out on the fly. If there's a moment this is the other thing that happens to me too, is like I had a show last week at the Hollywood Fringe
hmm
where a bit that totally usually takes a minute lasted 5 minutes because it was killing so hard. Because like I was trying to give my phone to an audience member to like there's a live video feed in out there.
Yeah.
I have a camera strapped to my chest that's projecting everything to the screen. And there's a moment, like I told you earlier, a dramatic moment where I set my camera down on a branch, just an audience member's hand,
Yeah.
and they're supposed to just hold it and follow me. And this person just could not figure out how to hold my, it was crazy. He couldn't hold the phone and the audience was dying. And so like, yeah, I'm gonna rely on my instincts and be like, well, if we're killing right now, I'm gonna go harder in this context. But then that's 5 minutes of show that I'm gonna have to catch up to later.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of juggling that's happening.
Well, I mean, on interesting audience members, as you said, your show, The Best Man Show, was out on a Dropout special earlier this year.
Yes.
And I couldn't help but noticing one audience member who was particularly erudite. And then I recognized who it was. And it was Demi.
Yeah. Demi, did you
Obey? Thank you. And I was like, oh, weren't you in his Dropout special?
I was.
I won't say the context that part of the show was in. So how are you with not only collaborating with other performers, but with watching other performers? Are you a good audience member? Do you enjoy comedy? Do you enjoy that collaboration aspect? What are those two different sides of the coin, working with other comedians and watching other comedians?
I love both. I mean, I think that too many performers go to Edinburgh and don't prioritize watching other artists' work.
Yeah.
It is outrageous to me. I meet so many people who are like, "Ugh, it's so exhausting to just do my show. I don't go see other people's shows." And I'm like, "You are crazy. This is the world's largest performing arts festival. There are people here. There are people here who are so good that it is a crime. It is a crime to miss out on these shows. There are people here who are like, oh my God, it's crazy. I love going to see shows. And I mean, that's not to say I go to see shows and I feel competitive. I go to see shows, like I was in Edinburgh at the same time as Demi.
Mm-hmm.
Demi's show was totally sold out the whole time. Mine wasn't. And I remember kind of having that feeling that you have when you're like, why do they have this? And then you go see it and you're like, that was good. That's why it was good. That's, he was also in a much better venue at a much better time slot. And, and also is more famous than I am. That's like more people know who he is. Nobody knows who I am at that point in my life. I love working with other comedians. I mean, I actually like, I came up, after I was an improviser, I was a sketch comedian in New York City for 10 years,
Yeah.
and I relied on group work. Collaboration was huge for me.
Yeah.
I loved traveling with a group. And I would say that I've been on a streak the last couple of years of making solo shows. And that's just been really, really successful for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I like to work with other comedians. I love to work with other comedians, but I'm a very intense person. I care a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think that like with my previous groups, I think that other people eventually get turned off because I'm like, I will literally rehearse every day. I want to. I want the show to be perfect. I want the show to be, and that's not to say that like a show can be perfect. It's just like that's my driving trauma. And yes, I've gone to therapy a lot since those times. I've learned so much about myself. And my little devil show that I've been kind of doing as a late night show at Fringe out here.
Yeah.
That's an ensemble piece. But I love working with other comedians and I want to do it more. It's just a matter of like, one thing I learned about my sketch group in retrospection, I would say that I should have just been the leader. I was the leader, like I had created the group, but I was so determined to make it a group effort that I ceded a lot of control that ultimately was our undoing because like we tried to do everything by committee and it was just so exhausting. And if you just have one person who's just slightly in charge of all that stuff, it's just like we remove all the pressure.
Yeah.
It's like Mark gets the final say. He cares the most, whatever. And I love seeing other comedians. I mean, I would say that like just to use this opportunity, like my current biggest inspirations have got to be like Natalie Palamides is at the top of my list.
Yeah.
And Courtney Peruso and Bill O'Neill and Julia Mosley, Gary Starr, like that whole class of pretty much the English speaking clowns who've been in the game for a while. But also I mentioned my live video feed. I wouldn't have done that had I not seen the Umbilical Brothers. They had this whole show where it was crazy. They have all these cameras on stage and a guy in the middle on a laptop that's connected to all of them.
Mm.
And the two of them, it's a two-person sketch group, and the two of them have basically created a series of sketches that rely on the cameras, and the projector is right above them in the assembly Roxy in the huge space.
Yeah.
And so the projector is so big and like, one of them will walk into the frame and all of a sudden, it'll be just his head on a space suit. And so it's like all these effects are being added in real time.
Yeah.
And they're making like a TV sketch show right on the fly.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's one of my favorite things to do at Fringe, is go to see like what are the shows that are really pushing the form, doing things on a stage that I haven't seen before.
Yeah. That's a good example of one of the things that, as well as like we said about clowning a sketch, you enjoy integrating technology in some sense, like you've said about, doing the back projection. That's your software engineering, I guess, coming to the fore.
Exactly. Well, you got to use every piece of the whale. You know what I mean? Like if I have a certain set of skills that make me a nightmare for a Fringe festival. I want to, I think that's what artistry is, right? It's like can we, and I think I have a live video feed in my show, and it's not ooh, how cute would it be to have a live video feed in my show? It's narratively important. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if I feel like I haven't fully told you what Out There is yet.
Well, yeah, let's do it. Jump in, go for it. Give me the full elevator pitch.
Okay, it's a show about a guy who goes to the wilderness of Alaska to make a YouTube video about surviving all on his own, but he doesn't really know what he's doing, and the audience plays the wilderness. And he starts to slowly lose his mind over the course of being this hapless survivalist. And so the live video element is him trying to make a YouTube video, and it's a camera strapped to my chest that's projecting everything I see onto the screen. Mm-hmm. So then everybody in the audience has branches and other little props. And from the moment that I start the show, I'm like going into the woods and I'm like, look at this tree, and I zoom in and it's somebody shaking a little fern and things like that. And so the live video feed is a way for me to honor the medium that I'm kind of parodying, or not parodying, but like exploring and satirizing.
Yeah.
Guy who's trying to make a YouTube video about surviving, which is a very specific type of guy.
Yeah.
But also there's a universal aspect of he's a repressed artist. He's a person that probably should have been going outside and hanging out with his friends a lot more, but was just so trapped and committed to his job and just denied himself. And
yeah. We talked a little bit about the protective aspect of playing a character where you're sort of distanced, but also when you're playing with the audience and you've got the technical enhancements going on, all of this, when you're adding layer upon layer, chaos ensues, of course.
Yeah.
How do you know when the different layers that you've added, the absurdity and chaos that you introduce, how do you know when that's protecting you from sincerity rather than helping you to reach it and add that emotional dimension?
Well, what's the more comfortable I get with it, like the more that I practice the camera, I've now done out there like 18 times.
Hmm.
It is kind of second nature. And we've figured out the technology.
Yeah.
There's no real lag anymore. There used to be a lot of seam, like you used to be able to see the seams of the production
Right.
very clearly.
Yeah.
Now there's not. Now I feel very relaxed and comfortable in there. And I think what you're alluding to is like, yes, the character, the technology, the props. A lot of people go to this show and are just like, that was funny.
Right.
Uh, they are taken by the silliness and the playfulness, and that I'm gesturing, I'm waving my hands
Yes.
for the people listening. That whole peanut butter around the pill makes it easy for me to be extremely vulnerable. Like
Mm.
I do share the way that I come up with a show that has been really working for me is I start by exploring what's scary. I
Yes.
start by exploring the pain. I start by exploring like what's scary to admit out loud.
Yeah.
Okay. And out there is me dealing with trying to live as an artist. It's me. I wrote this show when I'm a freelancer, and I was trying to make money. And I was thinking about the amount of effort it takes to simply get by in this country, and make art. It's just so hard on my body. It's so hard on my mind.
Mm.
And it feels like, okay, I'm out here and I'm trying to survive as long as I possibly can.
Mm.
And every time I have a win, every time I get a good review, every time I get a email about some audition, every time a manager or somebody says they're going to come to see my show, that I caught a fish. And okay, I can live for another 2 days.
Mm.
Truly, this was the inspiration for the show. I was about to go on a fringe tour and I was running out of money and I was starting to panic because I was like, how am I going to pay for this shit?
Yeah.
And I am a big fan of this TV show out here called Alone. I don't think it's made to the UK yet.
Mm-mm.
It's a reality competition show where survival experts are dropped in a very hard to live place,
Hmm.
like in the Arctic, right at the beginning of winter, with like a handful of items and a box full of cameras. And they have to film themselves trying to survive for as long as they can. And they have a radio where they can hit a button and be like, I'm out.
Yeah.
And they don't know who is left. And as they are increasingly just like starving and they miss their family and they've got an infected open wound and whatever, they are like, it's like been 2 months, I gotta go home.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about how like on like day 60, when you have been starving and cold and breathing in smoke because you didn't build your chimney right in your shelter and you're just miserable and you catch a fish, these people are so happy they weep. They like roll around. They're like, oh my God, I caught a fish. And it was May 2024. And I was about to go on my fringe tour and I was feeling really self-conscious about the Best Man show.
Hmm.
And at the same time, I was like, how am I going to pay for this all? And then a job just lined up for me. That's remote, well paid, easy to, configure around my schedule. And it felt like I had just caught a fish that was going to keep me alive for another couple of days. And that the whole show came to me like in that moment. I was just
Mm.
like, this is what the next show is.
Do you think that so far there's one single lesson that you've learned from your experience or from your audience even that informs what you do going forward, that informs your philosophy, if you like?
Yeah, I would say the biggest lesson I've learned, because I touched upon how I was just like this ambitious 20-something who lived in New York City and did
Mm.
improv and sketch comedy, and I worked so hard.
Hmm.
And I just kind of like, I was just like climbing, but like with no kind of barometer for where. And as I told you, my first show of this current era is about people pleasing. And
Yeah.
I I lost my way in that phase. Okay. I was doing well and I was, I got an agent, I got a manager, I auditioned for Saturday Night Live, I screen tested for Saturday Night Live.
Mm.
I like auditioned for all these TV shows. I had all these close calls. And then rather than listen to myself and listen to the things, keep doing the things that got me there, I started trying to please everybody. I started trying to like play the game. You know
Mm.
what I mean? I started trying to be like, okay, well, what does it look like to have a career in comedy? And I started doing all these things that were inauthentic to myself. And I totally burnt out and I totally lost my way. And then a few years ago, I've now mentioned it a few times. I call it my fringe era, 2022 to now. I was on the precipice of quitting,
Hmm.
just like throwing in the towel. And I said, no, I'm going to make one more show. And you know what? This time I'm just going to do it for me. And I'm going to just listen to my instincts.
Yeah.
And that show changed my life. It took me to all these fringe festivals. I met the love of my life. I saw all this art. And then that show led to the next show, which then, is a special now.
Mm.
And I've gotten to perform it on 3 different continents almost 100 times. And now my next show is even bigger and better, and I feel amazing about it. And so I think the biggest lesson that I've learned and that is that I have to listen to myself. Is that the most important uh the most important voice is my own.
Hmm.
And if I'm trying to think of like, oh, what's gonna work?
Yeah.
That's not like, yeah, it has to work, but we'll make it work. We can make it work. You can make it work. But it's more exciting. Like anything worth doing, it has to come from inside. It can't just be like, oh, this is a fun idea.
Yeah. So where do you think that you're at your happiest? What's the part of the process or the part of your experience writing, coming up with the ideas, performing the shows, collaborating with audiences?
Mm.
What's the best part of all of it for you?
Oh, I mean, the best part is the part I'm doing right now.
Well, this podcast.
Yeah, this podcast. You and I shooting the shit while it's nighttime for you, morning for me. No, no. The best part is I'm on stage and the audience is fully with me, and
Yeah.
I am just vibing. Like it's so it's so fun. Like I've been working on Out There since the fall of 2024.
Yeah.
Um, it's spring, it's summer of 2026 now. The show is always going to be different. I'm always going to be making changes. There are always little things that I'm going to be changing. So I'm never going to say it's done,
Mm.
but for like I'm not going to do another major rewrite. I'm not going to move this scene here or like cut this part, like it's done. And I get to just enjoy it now. And the fact that it's taken me so long to get here has made it so that now when I get up on stage, it feels like I forget that I worked so hard on it.
Mm.
So now it's just like, oh my God, I'm just like out here killing. And it's easy. Like I don't have to memorize the lines. They're just in me.
Mm.
It's so fun. Oh my God, it's so fun.
Yeah.
Like I was just at the Orlando Fringe Festival and I had that experience that every artist wants, which is like, the first show or two, it was a good audience, but it was like kind of on the smaller side. But then like word got out, and by my last weekend, I was selling out.
Yeah.
And that feeling of like, this is an audience that's just like buzzing, and they're so excited, and everything I say, they're like, yeah. And they're here because they heard about the show or they've seen it before, and they're sitting in certain spots because they want me to pick on them, and like, oh, that's the shit. That's it. And it makes starting the next one so daunting. I'm like, God damn it. I don't know, man. I have so many seeds in my notebook. I'm like, I don't know what the hell is next. Oh, man. But it's got to be perfect. It's got to be the best thing I've ever made in my life.
So what do you think then so far have been the single worst and best moments you've had in comedy or through comedy?
Oh, I mean, I met the love of my life at my very first Fringe festival. And I think comedy has comedy and my authentic performance of it
Hmm.
um has enabled me to be the most actualized version of myself. Like I sit here today the most confident I've ever been and the healthiest I've ever been. And it's because I have an artistic practice uh, that is really authentic and it's working for me.
Mm.
I prioritize my creativity and I get to share it with people and the responses are positive.
Yeah.
Like so when you say what's the best thing that's come of it, I'm like like my life, like the fact that I wake up in the morning excited to be here. Um and I would say that the worst parts of it are uh you know uh my friend, another person who does a lot of fringe festivals, my friend Martin Dockery told me he very much lives by the phrase like you're only as good as your last show. And it really does feel like that. Like
Mm.
if a show doesn't go super well, I do question everything. I do spiral. And I would say that like the hardest parts about this career um are that paradoxically, the most career success I've ever had, aka making a comedy special on Dropout,
Mhm.
it came from me making a show where my goal was to make the best show I possibly could and explore all this pain that I was experiencing.
Mm.
I wanted to make a show that was as good as Vanessa 5000. Like that was my goal. It was like I want to make a show that's as good as the great Banana Brothers or Nate. Like I wanted to be up there with the big dogs.
Mm.
It wasn't I want to sell a show or make a special.
Mm.
Um, and I would say that what's so hard is like, how do you answer this question of how do I make money? Like how do you balance that?
Mm.
Um, I know it's easier or the infrastructure is different in the UK. The infrastructure is different in Australia. Like I know that London, for instance, is a theater town. Like people take chances and go out to see shows
Yeah.
of all types. That is not the case in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, it is like the home of the movie industry. I know that, oh, it's all falling apart, whatever, blah blah blah. Like it's still very much here, and
Mhm.
and it's like there's this constant looming question of like, oh, should I be making more social media content? Oh, should I try stand up because that's easier to sell? Or oh, should I write a script that I can sell? There's so many shoulds and like the constant existential battle of like, is it okay that I make money as a teacher and a ghostwriter who gets to perform his most authentic art? Or is there a middle path where I could be paid a little bit you know what I mean? Like
Mm.
that's the part that's the hardest
Yeah.
is trying to figure out how to make it all work while balancing some sense of artistic integrity. Um and I always do come back to, like my favorite authors all were teachers and slash are,
Mm.
J.R.R. Tolkien was not a full-time writer.
Mm.
He was a translator and a professor.
Yeah.
George Saunders is a professor. I'm sure he doesn't have to be anymore, but
Mark, how can we find out all about you and where we can see you performing?
you can find out all about me hilariously on social media. On Instagram, Mark underscore Vigiant. On TikTok, it's Mark Vigiant, no underscore.
Mhm.
I'm fighting to get that underscore removed. Yeah, I use Instagram and TikTok the most. My website is markvigiantcomedy.com, and I do have a newsletter. That's the easiest place to find out about what I'm up to. I do post to that infernal social media platform. The big things to promote right now, I mean, see my special, The Best Man Show on Dropout. It's the best thing I ever made. It's cool as hell. And then you can see me in Edinburgh. Go see Out There. You'll be like, wow, he's having such a good run.
So my last question, of course, is always the same for every guest because it is the title of the show. Mark, how would you sum up what comedy is to you in a nutshell?
Uh, Pain that has been digested by a professional.
Mark, thank you so much for being my guest. I truly appreciate it. It's been a blast. Thank
Mark,
you.
thank you so much. I appreciate being here. I literally could have kept talking for another hour. It's so lovely, Mark. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.